of value, we don't have to do that. Okay, which would you prefer?
We are prepared.
You are? Okay, so very good. Let's do this then. Go ahead and start when you're ready. Okay.
Oh, just a quick background. We are going to be playing a group of advisors to the Purdue Farms Inc. Their board of trustees. So let's get started.
Let's just stop that for a second. Let's go back through that. Okay, so what is your role and what's my role?
We're supposed to be the consulting firm for the board of directors, discussing some of the ethical allegations on behalf of Purdue Farms that are against the farmers, the factory workers, and the consumers.
Okay, so Purdue Farms, the company that produces poultry.
Yes.
Good stuff. Thank you.
So imagine with me for a second. Imagine that for all your life, you've made your living on poultry. Your father farmed, now you're farming, you're providing for your family. But 20 years ago, somebody with fatter chickens and lower prices forced you out of the market. You can't provide for your kids anymore. You don't know what your future is going to hold. 20 years ago, a corporation made you an irresistible offer. That offer promised you fatter chickens and a consistent wage of about $60,000 a year. That corporation brought those fatter chickens into your life. But that's not all they brought. They also brought $500,000 in debt and around $18,000 every year as their only income. You're the victim of a lottery system. If you don't produce as much chicken as your neighbor does, who's also in cahoots with this corporation, you will be left with only the lowest slot of income. And when you are in that lowest slot of income, all that corporation is prepared to give you is the worst quality, the worst caliber chickens they have to offer. This traps you in cyclical poverty. This is not a wage that can provide for your family. This is not a wage that can get you out of that $500,000 debt. And that money is not all this corporation has taken away. They've also taken away your access to proper health care. They've also taken away your integrity. To compete with those neighbors, to have any glimpse of hope, to address the cyclical poverty that you're in, you have to resort to integrity-shattering, unethical practices associated with those chickens. You need to cut as many corners as you can to even try to compete in this cutthroat business. Imagine with me that you've been working in the factory industry all your life. Imagine that a corporation promises you $10 to $12 an hour as a starting wage working the line at a poultry processing plant. You're working there now, but that minimum wage, that starting wage is not all you've received. You've also received osteoporosis. You've received bone disorders and deformations because of the nature of the amount of chickens that you're expected to prepare a minute. When that line starts, it doesn't stop. And your neighbor knows that too. Your neighbor knows that so well, they've had to resort to wearing a diaper on the line. They don't have enough time to take a break, a bathroom break at all. And this is institutional. Your colleague brought this up with the manager. The manager shut them down, almost threatened to fire them if they spoke up with this issue before. What they don't know is that they are in the early stages of a urinary tract infection and prostate cancer. Imagine this same corporation is not providing you with the tools you need to know how to work in this dangerous environment, is not telling you the dangerous effects on the health of you and your peers, that the dangerous chemicals you use to make this chicken more safe for consumers is having on you. And when you got into an on-site work injury last week, you were not prepared for the way that this corporation would treat you. They have an on-site wellness center. That sounds great. You don't have the money, and your insurance doesn't necessarily cover any outside medical leave. You go to that wellness center, all they're prepared to give you is a salve and Somadvil, only after they wait till after your shift. Because they know that any report of an on-site injury during the course of your work would increase the amount of OSHA violations that that company would need to file. This is the reality for many of the people under the Purdue umbrella. This is the reality that we are attempting to counter using things like rule utilitarianism to provide a moral framework and an ethical guideline to ensure that any action taken by Purdue can be an ethical one. This is a framework that guarantees the health, the dignity, and integrity of these workers, because that is the core ethical violation that we have seen. I'm going to pass it on to Courtney, who's going to elaborate.
Thank you very much, Ryan. It's difficult to imagine that one of the wealthiest poultry companies in the entire nation would impact so much suffering to their farmers and to the factory workers. Purdue is a $6.2 billion corporation with a yearly revenue of $2 billion. It's difficult to imagine that the people that are responsible for generating such an increased income every single year only make about $18,000 a year. We've decided to implement a policy based off of rule utilitarianism to help solve all of these problems and actually generate income for the company. Rule utilitarianism basically says that there is a rule or a set of rules that can help create the greatest aggregate good and the least aggregate harm. And Purdue has already set themselves up to be implementing a set of rules to keep the wellness of the farmer in check and the wellness of the factory worker in check. They created their corporate responsibility report 3 years ago in 2013, and in that came their code of ethics, where they outlined intimately the rules and basic procedures to protecting the factory workers and the farmers. Unfortunately, they do not have a committee to implement these rules. These farmers and these factory workers continue to suffer on a daily basis, and this is a problem that has been going on for about the last 50 years, that farmers have been complaining and complaining and complaining, and workers have been getting infected, sick, getting amputated from the lack of safety procedures on the factory machines. What we can do is offer Purdue the solace and the notoriety that we can in assuring them that following through with their code of ethics would not only protect their farmers and protect their factory workers, but also help them generate more money, because it's more cost effective to have to keep sending individuals in the hospital on behalf of your company's failure and neglect than to just have them working safely in the factory at all. And it's more expensive to have to deal with lawsuit after lawsuit over contract law violations with the farmers than to just let them be a farmer. It's difficult to imagine that one of the basic core business models can be so faltered and swept under the rug so easily that it got to this way. The farmers feel like they are enslaved. The factory workers feel like they have no hope and they're stuck there. Rule utilitarianism is outlined in their code of ethics, and that's what a code of ethics is, a basic set of standards. It's easy to follow by and it's easy to listen to. And our nation itself embodies the ideals of rule utilitarianism, laws that help protect the well-being of millions of citizens here. And that is highly reflected upon just a basic code of ethics. For the company to willfully ignore its own set of principles and its own set of values isn't just unethical at this point, it's illegal. Because their code of ethics wants them to stay aligned with the law. And if they disobey their code of ethics, they are essentially breaking the law, which is unethical and illegal, expensive and wrong. It's not conducive for a long-term business model to not listen to your own principles. It's not conducive for a long-term business plan to ignore those that are the foundation of your business. The factory workers can leave, And the farmers can get contracts with other farms. It may be extremely difficult for them to do that now, given the financial situation that they're in, but it's possible. They're only afraid to, because every time they spoke out against the company retaliated. For the farmers, the company gave them genetically inferior chickens. They sent unnecessary audits. They had to make extremely expensive upgrades just to help raise the chickens that aren't even necessary to raising a chicken in the first place. For the factory workers, if they brought up their concerns, they gave them less breaks. They took away their health care. They lowered their wages. They made them work longer hours. Completely against the only set of principles that they themselves set for them. Rural utilitarianism embodies all the solutions that Purdue needs to take. They just need to implement them. Thank you.
What we are providing is a voice for these people. We are providing an avenue for themselves to address the concerns that they have with the company. In Purdue's own code of ethics, I offer you this quote in closing. The principles of mutual respect, trust, and a commitment to being the best are shared between suppliers, producers, and customers. This is what they have guaranteed in their statement of values and their codes of ethics. And this moral framework is the only way to preserve those values. As Arthur Purdue once said when he started this company, quality is no accident. And we firmly believe that too, which is why these steps are necessary. Thank you.